slavery thing. What nigga you know gonna work all day in a hot field for no paper? See, that's your problem. You be believing anything somebody tells you or put in a book.
Slaves were property. Now, property is very valuable. It doesn't matter if it's in human beings or in things. It's very valuable, and slaves were valuable. So if George Floyd was actually a slave, the police officer would definitely get his comeuppance because they're supposed to protect their property. The slave owner's property, they're supposed to protect, which is the slaves. So if they damage the slaves or destroy the slaves, meaning killing the slave, they're going to get in serious trouble, especially if there's no real justification at all. So that's the difference between the free system and the slave system. Like, for example, Black Wall Street. That was in the free system, right? Hundreds of black people murdered, a community completely destroyed within a day. And who gets corralled and detained? It was black people that got corralled and detained. All the Caucasians were let go. Nobody was arrested for that atrocity. Now, if they did that to a slave community, all of them would have been arrested and executed. Definitely, because they destroyed a massive amount of property. Not only the plantation, but also hundreds of slaves. If they even if they killed like 5 slaves, they would be in so much trouble. They most likely would get executed because this is uncivilized behavior. There's a reason why slavery has been in the Bible for so long, because it was a disciplined, organized, and civilized system. Okay, which what we know as Caucasians did not like, which is why they wanted to destroy it, and which is why they want to demonize it. So all the information about slavery that's negative, it's coming from the North. The North was notoriously racist and bigoted towards black people. They were very antagonistic. They didn't like the South either, but yet most of our information is coming from racist, bigoted people. They also said that black people were inferior, uncivilized, and had no significant history to speak of. This is during the time of slavery. So if you believe what they say about slavery in the North, then you must believe that black people are inferior, uncivilized, and have no significant history to speak of. So there's a lot of misinformation about, African history, slavery, because they are the ones that are telling it and they don't like it. Now, it really began during the Black Death, or I should say after the Black Death, because serfdom or feudalism, that was a form of slavery. They were tied to the land, and that was a form of slavery. So everybody was dying during the Black Death, and then after the Black Death, they needed workers. So it didn't matter where you were. You could come work for me over here, you could come work for me over there. It doesn't matter where you are, come work for me. So now they're not tied to the land anymore. Freedom. You see, that's where it comes from. I don't know if people mention that, but that's where it comes from. And then they didn't look back from there. They systematically started getting rid of slavery because it was part of the old world. Because the Protestant Reformation, I keep on saying, the Protestant Reformation was a New World Order. It was definitely a New World Order for what we know as Caucasians. It was their New World Order. And then what happened after that? Then you had the racism, the misogyny, the homophobia, the antisocial behavior. Right? And if you see what's happening now, black people are starting to rise up, women are starting to rise up, gay people are starting to rise up, and socialism is starting to rise up. These are the things that they despise. They had a problem with. It cannot be denied. They had a problem with black people asserting themselves. They had a problem with women asserting themselves. They had a problem with gay people, and they definitely had a problem with socialism. And those things are coming up right now. So, because we're trying to expel the ideas, the mannerisms of the old world order from the Protestant Reformation, right? So now slavery was a disciplined, organized, and civilized system. So when you get out of slavery, you're supposed to be a civilized individual. That's how it works. You're supposed to be a civilized individual. Now, these people wanted to bypass that, because they didn't like that. Because if they were civilized, once they get out, they're going to be civilized, and then white and black people, or Caucasians and Negroes, they would be getting along with each other very well. But they wanted to bypass that. So when they bypass that, you have a whole bunch of ignorant, degenerate people running around the place, and they're getting into positions of power that they shouldn't be in because of their ignorance, and they have a penchant for discriminating against people that they don't like. And then you have chaos, which is what you see in America, in Europe and America. So it's like, well, what do you expect? Of course, you have uncivilized people in the system. You understand? But slavery was there to minimize that. Okay, so when you get out of slavery, you're supposed to be a civilized individual. That's why it's in the Bible. That's why it was around for such a long time, and that's why it was very successful. You see, but they wanted to bypass that, and as you see, all the ignorance and all the racism and all the attacks against people that they don't like, it happened because of that. Because they didn't want to be civilized. Because they definitely weren't civilized to black people. Definitely not civilized towards women. Because women could do the same thing as men. But yet somehow, no, women can only do certain things. You know, and women had to fight their way. Black people, gay people had to fight their way out. And well, there you have it. That's the reason why they didn't like slavery, and they wanted to demonize it. So they'll say anything to demonize slavery. And yes, it wasn't perfect because there were some people that did bad things, but they were just focusing on that. Like, let's say that 20% of your history is bad and 80% of your history is good. If I want to demonize you, I'm going to focus on the 20%. I'm not going to focus on the 80%. I'm going to focus on the 20% and make it seem that that's who you really are. Well, that's what they did with slavery. Slavery did have its problems, yes, but overall it wasn't bad. Because they're making it seem that black people allowed themselves to be butchered and their women raped constantly, and we didn't do anything about it. We had to wait for Caucasians to come and save us. That's ridiculous. They always put us in an inferior position, right? They are telling the story so they could tell it the way they see fit, and then it's so annoying that people regurgitate their nonsense. It's just very annoying. But in a nutshell, that's what slavery was about, and definitely black people were very much protected under slavery, because when we got out of slavery, we were not property, and as a result, they attacked us. You think a slave could go to the market and all of a sudden get lynched, and the slave owner is not going to do anything about it? Of course the slave owner is going to do something about it. But in the free system, who's going to come to your aid? Your employer doesn't care. He doesn't own you. You know, your friends and family, in a sense, you could say they own you, but they have no power. The slave owner had power. Your friends and family do not have power. And they could say whatever they want about that black person, like he deserved it, this is what he did, blah, blah, blah. And if they give you a lawyer, it's going to be a shoddy lawyer, and you won't get justice. But in the slave system, yes, most likely you'll get justice, because it was a disciplined law and order system and civilized system.